All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a seriously chilling narrative that taps into a fear I think we all secretly share. We are going to deconstruct a terrifying late-night commute to see exactly how fatigue, total isolation, and harsh weather can just completely blur the lines of reality. We're looking at a classic urban horror story derived directly from our source material that brilliantly uses psychological pressure to build, frankly, incredible suspense. It takes a super mundane, everyday situation and flips it into an absolute masterclass in tension.
Seriously, think about it for a second. Have you ever wondered who else is actually traveling with you on that last lonely bus of the night? Picture our protagonist, Tushar. The guy is just utterly exhausted from the daily grind. It's super late, he's been stuck at the office because of heavy rain, and now he is literally running through dark, flooded alleys in the middle of a massive thunderstorm just to catch the very last, completely empty bus home. He makes it right before it speeds off, he's panting, relieved, and steps onto a completely barren vehicle. It's just him and the roar of the storm outside.
Section 1. The start of the terrifying journey.
So to really get why this horror hits so hard, we've got to look at where our guy Tushar is at mentally, right as he takes his seat. He is profoundly vulnerable. He is utterly exhausted, desperately seeking rest, and because of that severe cognitive fatigue, he is ready to rationalize away absolutely anything weird just so he can close his eyes. Now contrast that internal state with the external environment. Heavy thunderstorms, freezing cold winds, jarring lightning, and total isolation on an empty late-night bus. This puts his desperate, very human need for sleep right up against this eerie, storm-swept isolation. It's basically the perfect recipe for an unreliable narrator. When your brain is that tired, it starts playing tricks. Actually, scratch that, it actively lies to you so you can just get some rest.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mystery of crowds and emptiness.
Okay, so here's where things start getting weird. Let's look at the first major anomaly in the story and see how the suspension of reality gradually builds up. Tushar boards a completely empty bus, breathes a huge sigh of relief, and closes his eyes. But just 2 minutes later, literally 120 seconds, he wakes up and the bus is suddenly packed to the brim with people. I mean, where did a massive crowd even come from in a thunderstorm? But his tired mind just rationalizes it. He thinks, maybe he dozed off longer than he thought. Maybe a huge crowd got on at a major junction. So he just goes back to sleep. Then he wakes up again, and boom, the bus is entirely empty once more. And he realizes no stops had passed. There is absolutely no logical explanation for a crowd appearing and then just vanishing into thin air. Yet Tushar brushes the whole thing off as a trick his exhausted mind is playing on him. The narrative is actively testing his grip on reality, and ours too, through these impossible spaces.
Which brings us to Section 3. The old man's warning.
Just when Tushar is convincing himself, hey, it's all in my head, the story completely flips. It goes from visual tricks to this undeniable, punch-in-the-face sensory reality. Suddenly, these sharp details just shatter his comfortable rationalizations. Out of nowhere, there's this biting, acrid smell of beady smoke, a traditional local cigarette, filling the tight air of the bus. A sudden cloud of the smoke appears right in front of his face. Tushar turns to look, and there is an old man sitting in the adjacent seat. Keep in mind, this completely defies the empty space of the bus we just firmly established. The guy's face is covered in deep wrinkles, and his eyes just pierce right through the silence of the night. This isn't some blurry hallucination from the corner of his eye, this is highly specific, highly detailed, and right in his personal space.
When Tushar questions him, like pointing out that the bus should be empty, the old man drops this deeply chilling piece of local lore. He just says, 30 years, child. I've traveled on this bus every night for 30 years. He claims no living human dares board this specific bus past midnight. And then he recounts this terrifying memory, how, a year ago on this very bus, an entity with completely lifeless eyes sat right across from him, pointed a finger at him, and whispered, "You shouldn't be here," before just vanishing into thin air. It is a classic, eerie warning. But again, Tushar's exhaustion acts like this thick armor. He assumes the old man is just making up ghost stories to pass the time, or that he himself is still half dreaming. So unwilling to engage any further, Tushar just drifts off to sleep once more.
Next up, Section 4. The terror behind the newspaper.
So, Tushar falls asleep, basically just begging for escape. But when he wakes up just 5 minutes later, the old man and the smell of the smoke are completely gone. And guys, this is where the true terror just floors the gas pedal. The horror forces this incredibly unreliable narrative, creating a massive whiplash effect for our protagonist. It's 1 a.m., and Tushar spots a new figure, a man in the front seat intently reading a newspaper. Deeply unsettled now, Tushar asks the man who he is.
As the man slowly lowers the paper, he reveals a violently crushed, bloody skull with completely empty eyes, looking like he had just been in a horrific wreck. Tushar screams in absolute primal terror and shuts his eyes tight, shrinking back into his seat. But then, he feels a freezing cold hand on his shoulder. He opens his eyes, totally terrified of what he's going to see, only to find the exact same man looking perfectly normal. No blood, no crushed skull. He's cleanly smiling and politely offering Tushar a bottle of water. The psychological manipulation happening here is just astounding.
Right when Tushar is utterly convinced he is losing his mind and just hallucinating bloody skulls due to his overwhelming fatigue, this quote-unquote normal man delivers a genuinely chilling message. He softly goes, "Scared? Strange things happen on this bus at night. If you see something, forget it. Don't stay here, otherwise..." But before he even finishes this ominous, threatening warning, the man is suddenly standing right at the bus door, and without a single moment of hesitation, he jumps out of the speeding vehicle into the pitch-black night. And that jump? It is immediately followed by the sickening sound of a horrific crash and a piercing scream.
And finally, Section 5, the truth of the burning bus.
All right, at this point, the psychological tension just entirely snaps. Panicking, with his heart hammering out of his chest, Tushar splashes the offered water on his face, just trying to wake himself up. He runs to the door, and miraculously, the bus is approaching a stop. He doesn't wait around, he jumps right out into the pouring rain. Standing there alone, trying to catch his breath, he watches the bus slowly drive away. But now, looking at it from the outside, safely removed from the interior, the illusion completely drops. He sees the bus's true form. It is not a normal city transit vehicle. It is a half-burnt, completely accident-wrecked shell of a bus. And inside, it is literally packed with dead passengers, all turning their heads and staring right back at him. To top it all off, in this final terrifying realization, he sees the man with the newspaper and the 30-year commuter old man. Both of them are offering these faint, terrifying smiles from the shattered windows of the ghost bus as it disappears into the dark. Suddenly, every single bizarre event on that ride makes horrifying sense.
This whole setup is just an absolute masterclass in building dread through the mechanics of exhaustion, shifting realities, and the intense isolation of a stormy night. It leaves us with this super provocative question on the screen. Have you ever been so exhausted that your mind started playing tricks on you? Or were they actually not tricks at all? It really makes you reconsider the everyday, mundane environments we just totally take for granted. Next time you step onto a late-night commute, shaking off the rain and looking for an empty seat in the back, ask yourself who you are really sharing the ride with. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you found it as fascinatingly structured as I did, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.